Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Welcome back to Harry's Highlights. On this video, we're going to talk about the book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. Follow them and people will follow you. Now, this book is a comprehensive list of the most irrefutable laws when it comes to leadership. The full breakdown of each law individually and how leadership is made up its individual parts. So, because of that, I want to talk about each law individually and do a video on each one specifically. So the first law I'm going to cover and speak about is the law of the lead, which is the first chapter in the book. So what I want to do is explain them in a bit more detail and really sort of give a summary of all of them so that people can have a bit of an understanding of it all. Now the law of the lead, the first law, this is understanding a person's ability to lead. So the leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. So, to explain this one, the law of the lead, if your leadership rate is an 8, then your effectiveness will never be higher than a 7. If your leadership rate is a 4, your effectiveness will never be higher than a 3. So you can never be the same height as the lead. You'll always be just under it. Just like any sort of lead, the lead is the highest point and covers it. So the effectiveness will never be the same level as the leadership, your leadership ability. So with understanding that, there's your potential and there's where your lead is at exactly. So if your potential might be a 9, but your lead is currently at a 5, then the law of the lead talks about where you're currently at, not what you potentially could reach. So when you start to grasp and understand this a bit more, you understand that the higher you want to climb in anything, the more you need leadership. The greater the impact you want to make, the greater your influence needs to be. So, understanding that to increase your influence, you have to increase the lead. And increasing the lead is focusing on your leadership ability. So, understand that leadership ability is always the lid on personal and organizational effectiveness. Personal leadership is strong, then organization lead is high. When we talk about organization, we're talking about the group, the team, the business, the company, whatever it may be. If your personal leadership, your ability to lead yourself is strong, then your potential and your effectiveness to lead the organization is going to be high. So that organization's effectiveness will be high. Now, it's the opposite if the personal leadership is weak. If you can't lead yourself well, you're not going to be able to lead the team well, whatever that team may be, a business or be a company or be a group of any kind. That's why in times of trouble, for example, organizations naturally look for new leadership. Because, say, for example, a country is, losing money. It's not making as much money as it's on hard times. You're going to elect a new president or a new prime minister. If, let's say the company's not making money, it's losing money, you're going to elect a new CEO. Same thing there. Like when it comes to sports, if a team is not producing the results that it needs, it's not winning, you're going to elect a new coach. And sports is a really good example because you can see the results almost immediately. The coach makes a call and says, we're going to do this one. It fails, makes another call, fails again. People start to go, yeah, the team is very talented. Great people. They're all, really have the ability and skill. But their leadership, the person that's telling them where to go and what to do and apply those skills, is lacking. So that's where you can see how that the leadership is such an important pivotal role in anything. Because if you've got the right people in the wrong areas, it's useless. It's not gonna work. Same thing, if you've got the wrong people in the right areas, same thing again. And that's all determined by the leader, the coach or the boss, whoever's leading it all. So when you recognize that, the higher you want to climb in anything, the more you need leadership, and the greater the impact you want to make, the greater your influence needs to be, and so everything sort of flows together and comes together, then you understand that to reverse it all, you need to then focus on your leadership and your lid. Where is your lid sit at? Because the higher you can raise that one, the more effective you can be, so the bigger influence you can create, the bigger impact you can create on things, and your ability to lead yourself will flow on into the ability to lead others. So understanding all that, when you sort of put that all together, you can understand that when companies bring around, for example, like a turnaround consultant, when they basically need to have a company that that's struggling for whatever reason. It might be financial, it might be, normally it's financial, but it might be a whole bunch of reasons. They bring in a company to consult and they go, what's the first thing they do? And one of the first things they do is they train all the staff to improve their, service or of whatever it may be, or their effectiveness. And second, they will fire the leader almost every time without fail. The reason that is because the company or the organization wouldn't be in that mess if it wasn't for the leader. So yes, you could put time into training that leader up and putting that all through all that training and all that experience there, or you could just put somebody else in, which would be a much faster, more efficient way of doing things. So there's a lot of risk being a leader, but there's also a lot of reward being a leader as well. But when you can understand that and understand where your leader's at and your potential, you can then know what areas you need to work on and focus on to become better. So if you want to be more effective, you need to increase your leadership ability. You want to have a bigger impact, then you need to increase your influence. How you increase your influence is by having, stronger leadership skills. So to reach the highest level of effectiveness, you have to raise the lid one way or another. In some cases, when it comes to those companies, they get rid of the current leader. Other companies might, spend the time starting to train that leader there, bring them up to speed or improve their weaknesses, maximize their strengths. Sometimes, you might find like some coaches, they're not working with all the players well, so there might be like some sort of communication issues there, might be some sort of problems or issues with that. So it's about, there's lots of different factors that can affect it, but more often than not, it's based on that the leadership's, the potential leadership or the lid that's currently on their leadership isn't always going to be as high as what needs to be. In order to increase effectiveness, increase influence, you need to increase effectiveness. To increase effectiveness, you need to increase the lid. Increase that lid is all about that leadership ability. And some people have it, some people don't. Great example there is, the McDonald's brothers, who started McDonald's like in the beginning before it became what it is now. Their leadership ability wasn't as high as Ray Kroc, who took the McDonald's business, franchised it further, and turned it into the international franchising company that it is now. The two brothers that started it, they had a little bit of that understanding of how to make things more efficient, how to create systems, how to manage people well. But once it grew to a bigger and bigger size, and they tried to open a couple of franchises, they struggled a lot. They were really good at small time things, but as it got bigger, it required a higher lid, someone with a higher leadership ability. Another good example is like Apple. The brains behind Apple, Steve Wozniak, was, he was amazing at understanding how Apple worked, and leading them, when they were in the beginning. It was Steve Jobs that took it to, 9 figures. And it was his leadership and his ability that his lid was a lot higher than Steve Wozniak's. So he was able to take it to the level and bring it up to the level that it is now. That was because his leadership was higher, so his effectiveness was higher, so his influence was higher. So he made more of an impact. So you can see everything sort of comes together and flows together, and understanding where this lid is where you're capped at. You can raise your lid as well. So it's not wherever it is currently, doesn't mean it has to stay there. But it's about understanding what parts to focus on, if you're just trying to focus on, I need to improve my influence. Okay, to improve your influence, you need to improve, your impact. How do you improve the impact you have on people? Because you want to influence them more. You need to improve your leadership ability. How do you improve your leadership ability? Understanding that the areas of what you do. Are you managing? Are you leading? Are you delegating? Or are you, what are you doing specifically? And your leadership style is another point to it as well. So understanding the law of the lid is understanding that in order for an organization, a company, business, team to grow further, the lid needs to be increased. And the lid is based on the leader's ability. So that leader's ability needs to increase in order for that organization to grow. So I guess to summarize quickly, it's all about understanding about how everything flows together, and that the leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. The person's level of effectiveness determines that person's impact on an organization, group, or team. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more of an understanding of how this all sort of comes together and how the law of the lid applies in 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Now we're making a lot more of these videos for this training series to help you with your personal development goals. That's all for now though. So until next time, leave a comment below on what you like the most and I look forward to sharing more with you in the next episode of Harry's Highlights.